into an envelopment. If you have this concave, the force sails toward you, and the back of your fleet bends, which allows the two sides of your ships to wrap around the enemy. So it's a very useful technique if it works. The Egyptian fleet sails straight into Conrad's trap, caught in a piner grip. They are unable to flee the deluge of arrows that rends down, but the Muslims aren't finished yet, for they have a secret weapon. If you do get attacked on the seas, you can respond with things like Greek fire, or what we call napa. A mixture of petroleum sulfur and animal fat is highly flammable. This Greek fire really scares the Westerners. Not only does it come in terrifying flaming projectiles, but if you're hit with napa, you can't get it off you, and it'll keep burning even in the water. Also fire, because of its burning, because of the pain it provokes, it reminds us of the hell of the internal punishment. So, there's something terrifying about it. Especially at a time when Muslims are being demonized, they're seen as Satan's minions. The proof is that they use fire perfectly against the Christians. Once the Muslims are set fire to Christian galleys, the next step is to board them. The man-to-man combat begins with some unpredictable outcomes. There is this comic scene where the Christians manage to get on top of this vessel, and they seize part of the oars, and you have Christians on one level rowing ORS, you have Muslims on another level rowing ORS, and they're going in opposite directions. And so as they're rowing against each other, the boat is actually spinning in circles, and it doesn't stop until one side can get enough skirmishers on the end to kill some of these oarmen, and then finally straighten the ship out. The battle itself is turning to in the Christian favor. Conrad repeals the Egyptian fleet, which takes refuge behind the heavy chain of the port of Acre. The Christians quickly try to capitalize on their victory. The Crusaders have spent the winter building siege engines for their next assault on the city, among them 3 towers financed by G. Lucino and Conrad de Moe. These 89 ft high 5-story rolling structures can each transport up to 500 soldiers. At their summits, the large platform feature mobile bridges which the troops can use to get onto the city's ramparts. Webs of rope stretched across the front will protect them from projectiles fired from those ramparts. The defenders inside Acre, as well as Saladin looking from outside Acre, recognize that this is a serious threat, so you really need to deal with these constructions to break them, to stop them getting up to the walls in the first instance. They're very worrying indeed. The 3 towers start moving towards the city because of their size. They're moving very slowly as they're being pushed on either logs or wheels towards the city, so it's like creeping death as it comes towards you slowly, and you're shooting at it, you're using catapults against them, you're throwing stones, you're attacking them, and nothing is stopping them. They just get closer and closer and closer, but there is still one obstacle in their path. The ditches at the foot of Acre ramparts. The engines must cross them to get within reach. Under a rain of arrows, the Crusader infantry rushes Acre's walls. We will see considerable efforts to fill in not all of the ditches, but certain points of the ditches, so as to bring in machinery. We hear stories of throwing just about anything they can into these ditches, including humans. There's one story where someone wants to be thrown into the ditch as they're kind of dying. Well, from a defender's perspective, clearing these ditches is very important, because if the ditch is compromised, the city then gets into some serious trouble. Muslim catapults loaded with pictures of Napa make a desperate attempt to set fire to the 3 terrible machines. Unfortunately, the Crusaders had protected these things very well. They had covered the siege towers with animal skins, and then splashed on those animal skins vinegar, which has a warding effect. When the Greek fire would hit the vinegar, it would sort of fizzle, it would put the fire out. Stuck in his camp on the other side of the Crusaders' fortified line, Salad and his army are unable to help the city when all hope seems lost. A man arrives asking to see the Sulan. According to our Muslim sources, we're told that the son of a Damene cauldron maker comes up with the idea or promises that he's able to destroy these towers. And people are a bit skeptical. Well, We've tried this before. But he convinces Saladin that they smuggle him into the city, where he gets these enormous copper vats, and he makes up his special brew of Greek fire. He fires a couple of sighting shots at the towers, doesn't really work, and the Crusaders laugh at him, but then he fills up a really big vat lights. The fuse fires it and it explodes and engulfs this tower in flame. And at that point, the garrison commanders, they become believers, of course, and they mix up more of this stuff, and one by one, they completely emulate the siege towers. They are burned to a crisp, with the 3 ties destroyed. All hope of a quick victory for the Christians is lost. It's a hard blow, especially since for the troops, the siege has already gone on too long. There's a sense in the camp that nothing is being done, that we're wasting our time, that our leaders have not successfully prosecuted this seed, and so there is a movement to attack Saladin's army. The men insist on launching an attack to break the double siege, but Guy and Conrad refuse. They say it would be suicidal, but their men won't back down, so they give in, but on one condition, that it'll be without knights and cavalry. And so there's this great stirring of 10 to 12,000 of the regular soldiers. The infantry, they line up in formation and they attack Saladin's army, taken by surprise. The Muslims retreat, but very swiftly Saladin organizes his response. His horsemen charge into the Christians' ranks and crush them. And the sad part of this story is the knights and the counts see what is happening to them, and most of them refuse to go and help. They stay back behind the protective walls, and they essentially let their compatriots die. It's almost one of those moments of "I told you so," right? I warned you not to do that. You didn't listen to me, and so this is what happens. It's a lesson that comes at a high price. Between 4,000 and 8,000 Christian soldiers lie dead, their corpses abandoned on the battlefield. The dead are left to rot in the ditches. They poison the water. These harsh conditions mean that illness really kicks in. We find throughout the whole siege of Acre, more people die of illness than they do in battle. Westerners who come over are particularly susceptible to new stomach bugs and often die of dysentery. So it really is an incredibly tough environment to endure without reinforcements. Guy de Lucin has reached a dead end. The Third Crusade is slowly dying on the plain outside Acre, but a new player is about to join the game. Autumn 1190, the 395th day of the siege. The Frenchman Henri de Champagne, Count of Troyes, lands in Harbay. He's ready to take advantage of Guy and Conrad's failure to take the city, Henry of Champagne. This is a senior Western figure, a man with a great crusading ancestry, a man of energy, authority, money, and a good number of troops. Henry is, curiously enough, the nephew of both Richard the Lion and Philip Augustus. He's therefore perfectly placed to become king of Jerusalem. He's an accomplished warrior, and right now has just one obsession: to bring down Ao. It's incredibly depressing for the Muslims, because every time they inflict a severe blow against the Christians, fresh crusaders seem to arrive. And so when Henry of Champagne arrives, he arrives with numerous ships and supplies and reinforcements. And so this is a major psychological blow. Saladin knows that if he gives the city no reason to hope and no supplies, it will eventually surrender. So to get around the Christian blockade of the port, he shows considerable imagination. The better method is to go incognito, and so what they'll do is they'll take their vessels and try to transform them into Western-looking ships. They get the crew to shave their beards off. They put Christian flags on top of the masks. They even allow pigs to run around on the decks. And so as they sail past the Christian ships, the alarm is not rung until it's too late. But it's a very successful way of getting 3 large ships and all their supplies into Acre. Once again, the Crusaders' efforts to starve the city have come to nothing. Rye decides to try to take control of the port. Once and for all, Henry of Champagne decides to attack the Tower of Flies. If you can take that tower, you can control the entrance to the port. The Tower of Flies is the most imposing of the 2 towers that defend the entrance to the port. It's heavily defended and can only be approached by sea. So to take control of it, Henri has one of his GWS equipped with an assault tower, a floating siege engine. It was some kind of a maritime tower built up from the deck of a ship that had a bridge that was going to be used to help to get to the top of the tower of the Fly's A's galley drops anchor within range of the tower. The Christian archers send up a rain of arrows while the infantrymen, equipped with 2 ladders, set out to attack. But from the top of their tower, the defenders retaliate, hurling large pieces of wood that wipe out all the Christian soldiers in their path. Finally, a Muslim soldier throws a jar of napar at the ship. It immediately bursts into flame. A's attack has failed. The siege has been going on for more than a year now, and for the Crusaders the bad news is, piling up Europe's 2 most powerful kings, England's Richard the Liard and Francis Philippe Augustus, aren't coming. They will spend the winter in Sicily entangled in endless political quarrels. The long-awaited reinforcements and supplies won't arrive until the spring of 1191. You think about having to feed 10,000 people, 15,000, 20,000. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And that's just for the soldiers. When you start counting the camp followers, the cooks, the laundresses, everyone else who's involved, it's an awful big crowd. And so they never seem to have enough food. They're resorting to eating things like root vegetables and carob beans and drinking wine and even eating grass to keep themselves alive. Hunger and disease thin the Crusaders' ranks. All eyes are turned to the horizon in the hope of finally seeing the great leaders of the West.